The wedding march is playing, and I'm standing at the altar in my white dress, watching Jessica's face drain of all colour as my groom walks down the aisle. She recognises him, of course she does. After all, she's been married to him for the past 6 months, while I was supposedly dying in a hospital bed. But let me rewind and tell you how we got here, because this story is about betrayal so deep it nearly killed me. Literally. My name is Clara, and exactly 1 year ago, I was living what I thought was the perfect life. I had Ryan, the man I'd been with for 3 years, who promised me forever. I had Jessica, my best friend since college, who I trusted with everything. I had a future mapped out, a wedding planned, a life ready to unfold. Then came that night, October the 15th, a night that changed everything. I was driving home from work when my phone started buzzing with frantic texts from Jessica. "Clara, you need to come over right now. It's about Ryan. I can't tell you over the phone. Please, it's urgent." Message after message, each one more desperate than the last. "Clara, please, this can't wait until morning. You need to know the truth about him." The truth about Ryan? My heart was pounding as I made a U-turn, racing through the rain to get to Jessica's apartment. What truth? What had she discovered? My mind was spinning with possibilities, none of them good. Was he cheating? Was he lying about something? Jessica sounded terrified, and she never got scared about anything. I was speeding, I'll admit it. The rain was coming down hard, and I was distracted by her messages still pinging on my phone. That's when the truck ran the red light. The last thing I remember was the blinding headlights, the screech of brakes, and then darkness. When they pulled me from the wreckage, the doctors said it was a miracle I was alive. Traumatic brain injury, multiple fractures, internal bleeding. I slipped into a coma that same night, and nobody knew if I'd ever wake up. But here's the thing about being in a coma. Everyone thinks you can't hear them. They think you're just gone. But I wasn't gone. I was trapped, conscious somewhere deep inside my broken body, listening to every whispered conversation, every broken promise, every lie. Ryan visited every day for the first month. I could hear him crying, holding my hand, begging me to wake up. "I can't do this without you, Clara. You're my whole world. Please, come back to me." Jessica was there too, comforting him, being the supportive best friend I'd always known her to be. Also, I thought, by the second month, Ryan's visits became less frequent. 3 times a week, then twice. The crying stopped, the begging stopped. Instead, I started hearing different conversations. Hushed whispers between Ryan and Jessica that made my blood run cold, even in my unconscious state. "You can't keep living like this, Ryan," Jessica would say, her voice soft and caring. "Clara wouldn't want you to put your life on hold forever." "I know," Ryan would reply, "but it feels wrong. She's lying right here and we're talking about this. What was this?" I got my answer soon enough. Month 3, and Ryan's visits dropped to once a week. But Jessica was there constantly now, and the conversations I overheard made me want to scream from inside my trapped body. "The doctors say there's been no improvement," Jessica whispered one afternoon. "Ryan, honey, you have to face reality. She might never wake up." Honey. She called him honey. "I love you," Ryan said, and for a split second, my heart soared thinking he was talking to me. But then, I heard the kiss, soft and lingering. "I've loved you for so long, Jess, even before what? Before my accident? Before I was lying here fighting for my life?" "I know," Jessica whispered back. "I love you too. I've been waiting for the right time to tell you, but then the accident happened, and I couldn't tell you I was in love with my best friend's boyfriend while she was dying." The pieces started falling into place with sickening clarity. those urgent texts that night, Jessica's desperate need to tell me the truth about Ryan. She hadn't discovered Ryan was cheating. She was the one he was cheating with. She'd probably planned to confess everything that night, to steal my boyfriend while I was still conscious, to witness my world falling apart. Instead, fate gave her something even better. A comatose best friend who couldn't fight back. Month 4 brought a new development. I heard Jessica talking to someone on the phone, her mother, from the sound of it. "Yes, Mum, we're moving in together," she said. "I know it seems fast, but Ryan needs support right now, and I've always loved him. Clara's not waking up. The doctors say even if she does, she might not be the same person. Brain damage, memory loss. Ryan can't wait forever for someone who might not even remember him." My own best friend was not only stealing my boyfriend, but actively hoping I'd have brain damage if I ever woke up. The betrayal cut deeper than any physical injury ever could. But the worst was yet to come. Month 6 brought the conversation that nearly shattered what was left of my soul. I heard Ryan's footsteps approaching my bed, but this time Jessica's heels clicked alongside his. They stood there for a moment in silence, and then Ryan spoke. "I wanted to do this here," he said, his voice shaking slightly. "Even though she can't hear us, Clara is important to both of us. I wanted her to be here for this moment." The sound of Ryan dropping to one knee echoed in the quiet room. "Jessica, I love you. I can't imagine my life without you anymore. You've been my rock through all of this, and will you marry me?" Jessica's gasp was followed by her tears. "Yes," she sobbed. "Yes, of course. I love you so much." They got engaged, right there next to my hospital bed, while I lay unconscious and helpless. They actually used my comatose body as a witness to their betrayal. "We'll have the wedding you and Clara planned," Jessica whispered through her tears. "The same church, the same flowers. She'd want that, wouldn't she? She'd want us to be happy. No, I wouldn't want that. I wouldn't want any of this." But trapped in my silent prison, there was nothing I could do but listen as they planned their perfect life using the blueprint of the future Ryan and I had designed together. 6 months later, they had their wedding. I heard Jessica talking about it afterward during one of her increasingly rare visits. How beautiful the ceremony was, how perfect everything looked, how everyone said what a lovely couple they made. She even had the audacity to tell my unconscious body about her honeymoon, about the house they'd bought, the same house Ryan and I had put an offer on just days before my accident. They'd stolen my entire life and rewritten it with Jessica as the leading lady. But then, after 12 long months of torture, something miraculous happened. I woke up, and when I did, I remembered everything. The first face I saw when my eyes finally opened wasn't Ryan's. It was my mother's, and the relief mixed with guilt in her expression told me everything I needed to know about what had happened while I was gone. "Sweetheart," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "You're awake. You're finally awake." I tried to speak, but my throat was raw from the breathing tube. The words came out as barely a whisper. Where is Ryan?" The way my mother's face crumpled told me she'd been dreading this question for months. "Clara, honey, there's something I need to tell you. A lot has happened while you were..." She couldn't even say the word unconscious. "Ryan, he moved on. He and Jessica, they got married 3 months ago." I let my face show the shock and devastation she expected to see. But inside I was calm, cold, calculating, because unlike everyone else in that room, I already knew the whole sordid truth. "Married?" I whispered, making my voice break at just the right moment. "But we were supposed to." "I know, baby, I know. Everyone understands. It's complicated. The accident, The coma, it was too much for him to handle. Too much for him? I was the one who'd been fighting for my life while he was playing house with my best friend. Over the next few days, as I went through physical therapy and readjusted to the world, everyone tiptoed around me like I was made of glass. The nurses, the doctors, my family, they all spoke in hushed, sympathetic tones about how tragic it all was, how I needed time to process everything. But I wasn't processing. I was planning. Ryan finally showed up on my 4th day awake. He looked good. Better than I'd ever seen him, actually. His hair was styled differently, he was wearing clothes I didn't recognise, and there was a confidence in his walk that hadn't been there before. Marriage to Jessica had clearly agreed with him. "Clara," he said, standing awkwardly at the foot of my bed. God, it's so good to see you awake. We were all so worried." "We?" I asked softly, though I knew exactly who he meant. "Jessica and I, she wanted to come, but she thought it might be too overwhelming for you right now." How thoughtful of her. "Ryan," I said, letting my voice tremble slightly, "I'm so confused. Mom told me you got married, but I remember us planning our wedding. Did I dream that?" The guilt that flashed across his face was beautiful. "No, you didn't dream it. Clara, what happened between Jessica and me? It wasn't planned. You were in a coma for so long, and the doctors said..." He ran his hands through his hair. "I'm sorry. I know this is hard to understand." "Are you happy?" I asked, watching his face carefully. He seemed genuinely surprised by the question. "Yes, I am. Jessica makes me happy." "Then, I'm glad," I lied smoothly. "I want you to be happy, Ryan. I always have." The relief in his eyes was almost comical. He'd expected screaming, crying, accusations. Instead, he got the understanding. Selfless Clara he remembered. The Clara who always put everyone else's happiness before her own. What he didn't realise was that Clara had died in that hospital bed. The woman looking at him now was someone entirely different. Jessica finally worked up the courage to visit me a week later. She came bearing flowers, white roses, the same ones she'd carried at the wedding that should have been mine. "Clara," she said, her voice shaking as she approached my bed, "I'm so sorry. I know this is awful, and I know you must hate me. But I need you to know that what happened between Ryan and me, it wasn't something we planned." I smiled at her, the same warm, forgiving smile I'd given her 1,000 times before. "Jess, sit down, please." She perched nervously on the edge of the visitor's chair, clutching her purse like a shield. "I don't hate you," I said gently. "I could never hate you. You're my best friend." The tears that spilled down her cheeks looked genuine. "I thought I'd lost you forever, not just because of the coma, but because of what I did. What we did." "You fell in love," I said with a shrug. "It happens. You can't control who you fall in love with, right?" "Right," she whispered, looking like she couldn't believe how well this was going. "Tell me about the wedding," I said, settling back against my pillows. "I want to hear everything." For the next hour, Jessica told me about my wedding. How beautiful the church looked, how perfect the weather was, how emotional the ceremony had been. She showed me pictures on her phone, her in my dress, Ryan in his tux, their friends and family celebrating what should have been the happiest day of my life. "You look beautiful," I told her, studying a photo of her kissing Ryan at the altar. "Absolutely radiant." "Thank you," she said, clearly overwhelmed by my reaction. "Clara, I know this is strange, but would you maybe want to come to dinner sometime? At our place? I know it's a lot to ask, but I miss you. I miss my friend." "I'd love that," I said immediately. "I want to see how you've decorated the house. The house Ryan and I had picked out together. The house where they were now playing happy family while I learned to walk again. After Jessica left, I made a phone call to someone I'd been thinking about for days. Detective Sarah Martinez had been the officer assigned to my accident case, and she'd visited me a few times during my recovery to check on my progress. Detective Martinez, this is Clara. I was wondering if we could meet. I have some questions about my accident. Of course, Clara. Is everything all right? I've been having some memory fragments come back, and I'm not sure if they're real or just confused thoughts from the coma. Could you walk me through what happened that night? Absolutely. I'll come by tomorrow afternoon. When Detective Martinez arrived, she brought the accident report with her. As she walked me through the details, I listened carefully, asking innocent questions about the timeline, the weather conditions, the witness statements. The truck driver said you were speeding, she explained, and there were multiple phones found in your car, yours, and another phone that had been texting you repeatedly that evening. Another phone? We traced it back to Jessica Morrison. Well, Jessica Thompson now. She said she'd been trying to reach you about something urgent, but when we questioned her, she was too distraught to give us details about what she'd wanted to discuss. Too distraught. Or too guilty. Do you still have records of those texts? I asked. They're part of the case file. Would you like to see them? 20 minutes later, I was staring at the evidence of Jessica's manipulation. Text after text, each one more frantic than the last, designed to get me out of my house and on the road in dangerous conditions to hear about her betrayal with Ryan. But there was something else in those texts, something that made my blood run cold. The final message sent just 3 minutes before the accident. Never mind, don't come. It's too late now anyway. She'd changed her mind. She'd decided not to tell me about Ryan after all. But by then, I was already speeding through the rain, distracted and desperate to reach her. Jessica had essentially caused my accident by luring me out that night, then chickened out at the last minute. If she'd never sent those texts, I would have been safe at home. Ryan would still be mine. My life would be intact. Instead, she got everything she wanted without having to face the consequences of her betrayal. But consequences were coming. I was going to make sure of that. That night, I made another phone call, this one to a private investigator I'd found online. I need to know everything about Jessica and Ryan Thompson, I told him. Their finances, their relationship timeline, their social media, their friends, everything. Any particular reason? Let's just say I'm planning a surprise. The biggest surprise of their lives. The private investigator's report arrived 2 weeks later, and it was even more damning than I'd hoped. David Chen was thorough, I'll give him that. Bank records, phone records, social media archives, witness statements. He'd compiled a timeline that painted a picture so ugly, it made my stomach turn. Ryan and Jessica's affair had started 8 months before my accident. 8 months of secret meetings, romantic dinners, and stolen kisses while I planned a future with a man who was already emotionally invested in someone else. The evidence was all there. Credit card receipts from restaurants I'd never been to, hotel bookings when I thought Ryan was on business trips, even photographs David had obtained from Jessica's deleted Instagram stories showing her and Ryan together at places they claimed to have gone separately. But the most damaging evidence was in their text message history, which David had somehow managed to recover. Messages between Ryan and Jessica discussing how to handle the Clara situation. How they were waiting for the right time to tell me. How Jessica was getting impatient with sneaking around. And then, the night of my accident, there it was in black and white, Jessica to Ryan, 6:47 p.m. I can't do this anymore. I'm going to tell her tonight. Ryan to Jessica, 6:52 p.m. Wait, let's think about this. Maybe we should plan it better. Jessica to Ryan, 7:15 p.m. No, I'm done lying. I'm texting her now. Ryan to Jessica, 7:23 p.m. Jess, please. The roads are bad tonight. Can't this wait until tomorrow? Jessica to Ryan, 7:41 p.m. Too late. Already sent the messages. She's on her way. Ryan to Jessica, 7:44 p.m. You shouldn't have done that. Not tonight. Jessica to Ryan, 7:47 p.m. Actually, maybe you're right. I'm texting her to stay home. But by then, I was already in my car, racing through the storm to hear the truth that would destroy my world. The truth that instead put me in a coma and handed them everything they wanted on a silver platter. Armed with this information, I began phase 2 of my plan. Integration. I started showing up to all the social events Jessica and Ryan attended, not as the bitter ex-girlfriend, but as the gracious survivor who just wanted to rebuild her life. I complimented Jessica's new haircut, asked Ryan about his promotion at work, and slowly, carefully reminded everyone in our social circle exactly who I was and what I'd lost. Clara's being so brave about everything, I heard Sarah Mitchell whisper to her husband at Jake's birthday party. I don't know how she can stand to be around them. It's incredible, he whispered back. After everything they put her through, Ryan couldn't even wait a full year. Perfect. The seeds of doubt were already planted in people's minds. All I had to do was water them. I accepted Jessica's dinner invitation and showed up at my old house, their house now, with a bottle of wine and a smile. Jessica had redecorated, of course. Gone were the warm earth tones Ryan and I had chosen, replaced with Jessica's preferred stark whites and greys. Our cosy reading nook had been turned into a yoga space. The kitchen table where Ryan and I used to have breakfast was now covered with Jessica's work papers. It looks amazing in here, I told her as she gave me the tour. So modern and clean. Thank you, she beamed. Ryan gave me complete creative control. He said he wanted a fresh start. A fresh start? How convenient that his fresh start required erasing every trace of me from the home we'd chosen together. Dinner was delicious, and I made sure to tell them both how happy they looked, how perfect they were together, how glad I was that something good had come out of such a tragic situation. You're incredible, Clara, Ryan said, raising his wine glass. I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I'm grateful for it. We both are, Jessica added, reaching across the table to squeeze my hand. I was so afraid you'd hate us. Hate you? I laughed, the sound light and airy. You two found love in the darkest time of your lives. That's beautiful, not hateful. They exchanged a look across the table, relief mixed with something that looked almost like disappointment. Had they been hoping for more drama, more emotion? Sorry to disappoint, but I was saving all my emotion for the grand finale. Over the next month, I became a regular fixture in their lives. I helped Jessica pick out furniture for the guest room, attended Ryan's work barbecue as their friend, and even offered to dog sit when they went away for a weekend getaway. That weekend alone in their house was when I made my next move. I knew where Jessica kept her jewellery. She'd always been careless about leaving expensive pieces lying around. What I was looking for wasn't her engagement ring or wedding band, though. It was something much more valuable to my plan. In her jewellery box, tucked behind a pair of earrings I'd given her for her birthday 2 years ago, I found it. The necklace. It was a vintage piece that had belonged to Ryan's grandmother, the one he'd given me for our 2nd anniversary, the one Jessica was supposed to help me return to his family after the breakup, but clearly hadn't. I took photos of it with my phone, noting the serial number engraved on the back. Then, I carefully put it back exactly where I'd found it. The next piece of evidence I needed was in Ryan's home office. David had mentioned seeing Ryan's company laptop during his surveillance, and I needed to confirm something from the timeline. Ryan had always been careless about his passwords. He used the same one for everything, our anniversary date plus Jessica's initials. He probably changed it after they got married, but it was worth a try. His laptop was sitting open on his desk, and sure enough, he'd never logged out of his email. I scrolled back to the dates around my accident, looking for something specific. There it was. An email from Ryan to his boss, dated 3 days after my accident, requesting extended bereavement leave to care for his girlfriend, who was in a coma after a tragic accident. But just 2 weeks later, there was another email requesting time off for wedding planning with his fiancée. 2 weeks. He'd gone from caring boyfriend to engaged man in 2 weeks, while I was still fighting for my life. I forwarded both emails to an anonymous account I'd set up, then cleared the browser history. But the real treasure was in Jessica's laptop, which was helpfully logged into her social media accounts. I scrolled back through months of posts, looking for the photos I remembered David mentioning, the ones she'd deleted but hadn't scrubbed from her archive stories. There they were, pictures of Jessica and Ryan at romantic restaurants, dated months before my accident. Her hands with freshly done nails reaching across tables to touch his, wine glasses clinking in toasts I wasn't invited to, and, in one particularly damning photo, Ryan's hand on Jessica's lower back as they walked into a hotel, dated just 2 weeks before the night that changed everything. I saved everything to a flash drive, then spent the rest of the weekend going through their financial records. Joint checking account statements showed expensive dinners and hotel stays during the months they claimed to just be friends, supporting each other through my tragedy. By the time they returned from their getaway, I had everything I needed to destroy them. But I wasn't ready yet. Phase 3 of my plan required patience and perfect timing. I started dating. Not seriously, but publicly enough that word would get back to Ryan and Jessica. I joined a few dating apps, went out for coffee with some nice men, and made sure to post just enough on social media to show that I was moving on with my life. The reaction was immediate. Jessica started texting me more frequently, asking how I was doing, if I was okay, if I needed to talk. Ryan began showing up at places he knew I'd be, checking in with mutual friends about my emotional state. They were worried. Good. But the final phase of my plan was already in motion. Because while they were busy watching me date random men, they'd completely missed the most important relationship I was building. The one with Jessica's husband. Not Ryan. Her real husband, the one she'd never divorced. You see, while Jessica was busy stealing my life, she forgot about the life she'd left behind in Chicago. The husband she'd married during a Vegas weekend 3 years ago, when she was drunk and impulsive and thought it would be funny. The marriage she'd never annulled because she'd forgotten about it entirely, until she needed to file for divorce to marry Ryan. Except she never filed for divorce. Meet Daniel Morrison, Jessica's legal husband, a divorce attorney who'd been looking for his runaway wife for 3 years, the man who'd been sending legal papers to every address Jessica had ever lived at, trying to finalize their accidental marriage, the man I'd tracked down through public records and convinced to help me expose the truth. So, you're telling me my wife committed bigamy? Daniel had asked when I first called him 2 months ago. That's exactly what I'm telling you, and I have proof. Daniel was more than happy to help. Apparently, Jessica's disappearance had cost him clients and damaged his reputation when word got out that he couldn't even handle his own divorce. He'd been waiting 3 years for closure, and I was offering him the chance to get it while destroying the woman who'd made his life hell. Which brings us back to today, to this moment, to Jessica's face turning white as she realizes the man walking down the aisle toward me isn't some random boyfriend I've been hiding. It's her husband, her real, legal husband. Ladies and gentlemen, I announce, my voice carrying clearly through the church where Jessica married Ryan 6 months ago, I'd like you all to meet my maid of honor's husband, Daniel Morrison. The gasps echo through the sanctuary as Daniel reaches the altar and takes his place beside me, not as my groom, but as my witness. Because this isn't actually my wedding, it's Jessica's divorce hearing. What's happening? Ryan stands up from his seat, confusion written all over his face. Clara, What are you doing? I'm returning something that belongs to Daniel, I say, pulling out the envelope I've been carrying. Jessica, you dropped this. I hand her the envelope and she opens it with shaking hands. Inside are copies of everything: the private investigator's report, the timeline of her affair with Ryan, the photos from her deleted social media posts, the financial records proving their relationship started months before my accident, and most importantly, the marriage certificate proving she's been legally married to Daniel this entire time. This is impossible, Jessica whispers, staring at the documents. Daniel, what are you doing here? How did you find me? Actually, Daniel says, his lawyer voice calm and professional, Clara found me, and she's been very helpful in locating my wife, who's been avoiding service of divorce papers for 3 years. The church erupts in shocked murmurs as people realise what's happening. Ryan looks like he's been hit by a truck, which is ironic, considering what happened to me. Wait, Ryan says, his voice shaking. Jessica, you were already married when we got married? It's not what you think, Jessica starts, but I cut her off. Actually, it's exactly what you think, Ryan. Jessica committed bigamy. Your marriage to her is completely invalid. You're not her husband. Daniel is. I turn to address the crowd, many of whom attended Jessica and Ryan's wedding in this very church just months ago. I'm sorry to interrupt what you all thought was my wedding, I announce. But I couldn't get married in good conscience without clearing up some legal issues first. You see, some of you attended a wedding 6 months ago that wasn't legally valid. Jessica was already married when she walked down this aisle with Ryan. The whispers grow louder. I can see people pulling out their phones, no doubt texting and posting about the drama unfolding before them. But that's not even the worst part, I continue, enjoying every second of Jessica's mounting horror. The worst part is how this bigamous marriage came to be. While I was in a coma, fighting for my life after an accident caused by Jessica's manipulative texts that lured me out into a storm, these two were planning their future together, using the blueprint of the life Ryan and I had designed. I pull out my phone and connect it to the church's sound system, the same system they'd used to play their wedding music. I'd like to share some text messages with you, messages between Ryan and Jessica from the night of my accident. Jessica's face goes completely white as I play the audio recordings I'd made of myself, reading their texts aloud. The church fills with the sound of their conspiracy, their guilt, their decision to tell me the truth, and then their panic when they realised the storm was too dangerous. Stop, Jessica whispers, but her voice is lost in the gasps and angry murmurs from the audience. These messages prove that Jessica lured me out that night with the intention of confessing her affair with my boyfriend. When she realised the weather was dangerous, she tried to stop me, but it was too late. Her selfishness and cowardice nearly killed me. Ryan slumps back into his pew, his head in his hands. He's finally understanding the full scope of what they'd done, how their betrayal had started long before my accident, and how they'd used my coma as an opportunity to steal my entire life. But here's the beautiful part, I say, smiling at Jessica's horrified face. While you two were playing house in my dream home, planning your fake marriage with my dream wedding, and spending your honeymoon in the destination Ryan and I had chosen, I was listening. I heard every conversation, every plan, every cruel decision you made while standing over what you thought was my dying body. The church is dead silent now, everyone hanging on my every word. So, I planned my own comeback, not revenge, justice. I hired a private investigator, gathered evidence of your fraud, tracked down Jessica's real husband, and documented every crime you both committed. I gesture to Daniel, who steps forward with a briefcase full of legal documents. Daniel here is serving Jessica with divorce papers she's been avoiding for 3 years, and once their divorce is finalised, she'll be free to marry Ryan, if he still wants her after this. I look at Ryan, who's staring at Jessica like he's never seen her before. Of course, There's also the matter of the bigamy charges, the insurance fraud from claiming me as a dependent while married to someone else, and the theft of my grandmother's necklace that you're currently wearing, Jessica. Jessica's hand flies to her throat, where Ryan's grandmother's necklace, the one that was supposed to be mine, catches the light. I'll be pressing charges for all of it, I continue, but don't worry, I'm sure you'll have plenty of time to think about your choices in prison. The police officers I'd called earlier choose that moment to enter the church, their timing perfect. Jessica Morrison, Officer Martinez says. Yes, the same detective who'd helped me piece together the truth about my accident. You're under arrest for bigamy, insurance fraud, and theft. As they read Jessica her rights and lead her away in handcuffs, still wearing her white dress from what she thought was going to be my wedding, I finally turned to Ryan. He's sitting there broken and confused, his whole world collapsing around him, just like mine had collapsed that night in the storm. Clara, he whispers, I'm so sorry. I never meant for any of this to happen. I know, I say, and for the first time in months, I mean it. You fell in love with the wrong person, Ryan. It happens. But the difference between us is that when I lost everything, it made me stronger. When you lose everything, it just makes you a victim. I walk toward the church exit, Daniel beside me, leaving Ryan sitting alone in the ruins of his stolen life. So, what now? Daniel asks as we step into the sunlight. Now, I say, feeling truly free for the first time since I woke up from that coma. I actually live my life, the real one, the one I fought so hard to get back to. Behind us, the church empties as the guests file out, no doubt already calling everyone they know to share the story of the wedding that became a divorce hearing, the revenge that became justice, and the woman who came back from the dead to reclaim her life. Some stories end with revenge. Mine ends with something better, the truth. And Jessica? She's learning that hell hath no fury like a woman who heard every word while she was supposed to be dying.